One single injection unlocks your DNA and will release another version of yourself.
Hi, I'm Coralie Fargeat, the director of The Substance. I'm at the IndieWire studio in New York to talk about the making of The Substance on the Toolkit podcast.
I want to talk about The Substance, not the movie, but the actual narrative device, the substance, the drug. I'm curious, it's so effective and it works so well, but I read a lot of scripts and it's like they always have these like little narrative conceits or devices, and it's like the ideas are there behind it, but there's something, either it needs, the rules aren't there, or it just doesn't, it's something clunky. I'm curious, because this works so well, I'm wondering, is this something that just came naturally, or was there lots of drafts and iterations of how to get that part right?
In fact, it came pretty naturally, but to make it very simple, I think this is the thing that kind of takes some works. I think there were two phases in how the drug works for me when I found it. Was first one that it generates another you, and I think what, narratively speaking, kind of make everything is when you have some sort of limitations or some sort of rules that you have to respect.
Younger, more beautiful, more perfect.
Then came the idea of, 1 week each one. But I knew that I needed something more which would be related to the body and that would connect them in a physical way and in a visceral way, so as to express, what I really wanted to talk about regarding women's bodies. So that's when came the idea of having to pull out, some fluid from one to kind of stabilize the other one.
So you actually had to add a little
Exactly.
Normally it's about pulling away. You actually had to put a little...
Exactly. And I think it's about, yes, being sure that you have the elements, that's gonna allow you to film what you want. This is always what I think when I'm writing, like, what is it I'm going to film? And I knew that I wanted to film the bodies, so I needed to connect them in some kind of flesh way. So that's where the idea of the stabilization came from. So as they depend on each other, and there is also an impact on the body that could, allow me to make it in a very immersive way on camera.
That's one of those things you don't even think about, right? Is that you could lose that connection of Margaret's character and Demi's character. It's like, it's those little things, right? Where it's probably you just take it for granted as an audience, but like there is a world in which that could have bumped or something, right?
Exactly. And there is also like, the rules are pretty simple. And I think that's what makes them also powerful, that it is something that you can also do it yourself. I like this idea of, you just receive that box and like there is just the little cards, and it's something that speaks to anyone. You could receive that at home and still understand, how it works. But also you have to discover little by little, how it works. Like, and I like also to leave some things out of frame, that you have this immediate connection, with the instructions, that it's something that you read and that you do. And then as you do it, you discover the next step of rule.
Yeah, the minute you start telling more about the corporation or what's behind it, you would have been fucked.
Yeah, to me that was very clear also, because that was not what I was interested about. And I think when you set the rule of a film, that's where you can give yourself the freedom to explore what's important for you and leave on the side the other films that could have been made, but which are not the one that you want to be making.
I want to talk about Elizabeth's apartment. It's an amazing set, great set. It embodies her character. I think it's tied to a lot of your ideas about Hollywood, which is kind of a big thing. And then it's also even just the way that space transforms. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about both kind of the ideas, but also the execution of it. It's just a phenomenal piece of work.
Thank you. Yes. So for me, the way I make my films, locations are always a character. I write very little dialogue, so the way I build my filmmaking is really through, I would say, almost expressionism, where the mind of the characters project themselves where they are in the locations. That was the case for my first film, Revenge, where the desert, was a metaphor of what the character were going through. And here it's exactly the same. It's, this apartment that symbolizes the journey of Elizabeth. So when I start to write, there are really different layers, and I know that the moment where I found where this is going to take place, in which location, I've made a huge step in building my story and in building my films.
So you're imagining some element of this. Obviously, it'll evolve with collaboration, but to some degree, you're writing inside a container.
Exactly, yes. From the moment I write, I research a lot of images, a lot of visuals, and so I really write how the locations are going to be because they're really like characters. So you write how they look like, what is their backstories, how you want the audience to receive them. For instance, from the start, I knew that I wanted this apartment to have a symbolic function, like to represent this idea of Hollywood, which is a symbolic one, so which is not set in the present or in the past or in the future, but embodies a little bit of everything. So
it's an idea more than anything, right?
Exactly.
And it's more almost people's outside idea of what.
Exactly, yes. So then everything is meant to kind of make you feel something about the character. So there was this idea of it had to be big, because her journey as an actress, she had been famous, she had been recognized. The function of this view on LA really represents her relationship to her own life. At the beginning of the film, this view represents what is going away. It's her past. She's looking at this city that has worshipped her, and now she's kept inside her apartment, and this is her past. And when Sue is reborn and stands in front of the same bay window, suddenly it's the future again. It's the city that she's going to conquer. It's the city that, she's going to own again. And same thing for the bathroom. The bathroom is a very metaphorical, phantasmagoric space, which represents the metamorphosis of Elizabeth. It's the passage room. It's really her intimacy, place. So when I discussed with my production designer, and I was explaining him what I wanted, and on set when we first, were looking at the set, and he told me, like, you're really sure you don't want any furniture in this? And I said yes, because it doesn't mean to be a realistic place, but it meant to be a really symbolical place. And it's the same with Demi. First time she arrived in this bathroom, she said, but the light is like very straight, like in my bathroom I wouldn't be like that. And I said, yes, but this is, it's meant to be symbolical. It meant to have no filter. It's meant to have you facing with yourself, with the reality of yourself, of your body, with nothing that makes you look better, or, it's like just the mere you, the real version of you, with no gazes, with, your relationship to yourself. So the fact to have this kind of square, white, with very, straightforward light was really meant to symbolize and to represent all of that. And it was huge elements of building those sets. Same thing for the corridor, in the TV set, like there is no reality to this place. You never see where it is. You almost never see the outside. Mm-hmm. And the way to represent it for me with this huge long corridor that represent, the kind of domination that she has to go through. Like the corridor, she started her life at the beginning of the corridor, and when she arrived at the end of the corridor, her life is over, with all those posters that represent all the years of her life.
That like passageway, right? Like
exactly.
It's metaphorical on that one too.
And to me, I know that, especially as I don't write dialogues and I work with symbolism, all the locations and every set has to make you feel something. And I'm not going to explain it, but I know that each element that I choose, whether it is a color, whether it is a shape, whether it is a perspective, whether it is a framing, is going to unconsciously give you a lot, to infuse together with what's happening in the scene. And I love the fact that, everyone is going to be able to feel it on its own way, to kind of feel it on a more unconscious level, something that you can't totally explain, but that stays with you. I think also it's, something that to me, that is so important, that a movie can stays with you, that you don't forget it as soon as you've seen it. And I really believe that when you build some layers, that each one can project its own psyche, in it, it kind of give a special relationship with the movie. And to me, the function of the sets are so important for that, because they really build this kind of almost fleshy relationship with the environments. That's where from the start, from when I write the script, that I have already very specific, ideas. I build very detailed lookbook, mood boards, where I gather, a lot of images with what's important for me, whether it's perspective, color.
But the color's in there, right? Because the color is so strong. I know we don't have to get into the meaning of everything, but when you're seeing Sue, you're seeing pink. You saw that yellow jacket, that these things mean something to you, and it's
exactly. Yes. Because again, as I work with image and sound, everything that is going to compose the image has a very strong symbolic function. And for me, the wardrobe, it's like the set, it's like the location. They have a very symbolical, function. Especially, it's the same as I don't write backstories for my characters. We don't.
You don't write that. You don't come up with them, or do you not?
No, I write them in a very simple way. Like, for instance, the backstory of Elizabeth. It's the star. At the beginning of the film, that ages. You understand that she has been, a successful actress who has been worshipped, and then little by little, as she aged, get back into, was forgotten or, left on the side. So, but, my characters are very alone as well, So they are almost like superheroes, who have an outfit that define them, a very simple backstory line that is very symbolical as well, and everything that's happening is linked to what you see on screen. So for me, the wardrobe and the color that's going to be attached to each one of them is a important element. So I know that when I write, it's the same thing. I'm searching the color that's going to represent the character. And for Elizabeth, there was those two elements. The main element was the yellow coat. I can't totally explain how this color came up, but I think it was the idea for me. I think it's a color that kind of mix a lot of different ideas between the past, the present, the future, and it's something that you immediately can spot wherever you are, So it really make Elizabeth the center of frame everywhere she is. Also because I'm such in a immersive relationship with my character. She's, in the center of frame every time she's on screen. And it's it's becoming as something that represents her. And then the character becomes a symbolical way to represent, many other people, many other women, many other, a way of living the same stories. And again, you have to step out the rules of reality. So, for instance, I remember it was first conversation with Demi when we started to do the fittings for that coat. She said, yes, but in LA, it's too hot. You can't wear a wintry coat.
This is the LA of the substance, Demi.
Exactly. And it's something you have to transmit to your crew, to your cast, because when you step out to the rule of realism, which is the one that everybody understands, you have to let people understand the world that they have to build together with you. And exactly. And I was keep, repeating, it's not the real world, it's the world of the substance, And that's what was great with Demi, that then she understood, even if she resisted a little bit at the beginning, little by little, she managed to understood that with a wardrobe, we were going with something that was more symbolical in the way we're building that character rather than totally realistic. If, of course, she was in the real LA. And same thing, for the dragon on Sue's nightgown, it's really like this idea of the phoenix, that is born again from its own ashes, and this powerful, expression of her strengths and the fact that she's reborn, and that, yes, she's going to have this kind of inner power that's going to go also darker and darker. And the way the colors evolve for Sue as well are meaning a lot. At first, it's very pinky, girly, hyper sexy, vibrant, vivid colors. When it's her birth and everything is flashy, and bubbly outside. And little by little, as she's going to be infused with this more feminine, desire that's going to overwhelm her and makes her want more and more, the costumes go darker and darker with this cat suit, leather black cat suit, which is almost as a second skin that infuse her with some, more, how do you say, a sexual energy that makes her want to stay Sue and not come back into Elizabeth. So yes, that's, to me, those are the most powerful elements that I'm building from the script and that I research, from the start. And when I send my script, then I remember I sent her like 80-page mood board, lookbook with so many references that were starting to transmit the visual world and what was the substance world that is in between realism and phantasmagory.
You're talking about, you mentioned the bathroom being so white and bright, and it's amazing prosthetics work, but it's also something, your cinematographer pointed out to me. We're up, he's like, normally you try and hide it a little bit. It's like, this is like macro lenses or wide lenses, it's in bright light. And so and again, it's fantastic practical work that feels organic, but part of this feels to me like that idea of feeling the ripping apart is a big part for you. Like that was something you don't want to hide it. You want it to feel. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about that.
Yes, it's interesting because, in fact, this sequence, the birth sequence, it's the first sequence that I wrote even before I had my characters or my story or my full story. It's like I had my general idea of generating another you, like this fantasy that there is this better version of yourself. And I wrote this full scene the way it is in the film before I even knew who my main character was going to be. And I think it embodies all the main elements of the movie, with being a scene without any dialogue, with a very visceral relationship with your body, with what you film, how you film it in hyper, macro, or straightforward, and when you leave out of frame, you hear stuff, you see stuff moving, but you don't totally see them. You see them through what the character, is experimenting. And those very, again, strong symbolical elements with the back cracking open. I think the spinal cord is a very important element as well in the whole film, that we see a lot in that first scene with, like being the thing that lets the other one come out. And then it's something that is repeated in the costumes, with the zipper on the catsuit where then the organ falls, or all the cleavage, in Demi's back when she's at the bar with her dress. And again, all those elements, they give very strong, how would you say, sensations that don't need to be fully explained, but again, that plays with motives that, stays with you. Like, I think the spinal cord is something that makes us stand straight. It's our definition, it's our balance,
It's our backbone.
Exactly, and then the fact that the other one comes from the back, what maintains the balance, and then you have to respect the balance. It's something that came intuitively, and I think also because it's the relationship with yourself. You break something of you to let this other idea of you emerge, and then the other one has to stitch your spine again and take care of it. But everything comes from the spine when she pulls the liquid to stabilize herself. So yes, I think the spine, in a very unconscious way, or let's say intuitive way, was a very important, element. And I knew from the start that I wanted to have this done for real with practical effects, because it's the main relationship with the flesh. So I remember it was a lot of discussions about during the very, very early stage of preps, which was this. I think this scene, the birth scene, is the one that took us the most prep, the most time to shoot, and also quite some time to edit. But how we were going to do this thing with the backs for real, and that's, where we discussed building so many fake backs to, use one fake backs for every step of the way. And I remember during the edits where we had, when the spine cracks open, there is the little beginning of the shot. You already see, the kind of the slit. And so the VFX supervisor told me, if you want, we can try and, do something with CGI at the beginning to hide it and then merge it with the real opening. Exactly. So I said, maybe we can try. And when I saw the shot, which was done pretty well, but I had lost something with the visceral relationship. And I said, no, I prefer that we see the trick at the beginning, the imperfection, but there was something more important that was happening. So we kept the shot as it was without any CGI at all. And I think it really shows how much the flesh relationship, with images is so important. And I knew that what I wanted to create for that film, because it's really the relationship you have with your own body, and you have to be able to feel that. And me, as a filmmaker, I have to be able to touch it, to put my hand into it, to be able to frame it for real, because I know that I film in a very obsessive way with all those macro shots, that are really the way I build my cinematographic language. And this I need to be able to film for real. I can't film a green stuff or, an imagine. So I always tend to kind of not write the thing that I know I won't have the money to do, and limit myself to, frame less things, but things that I know that I will be able to do for real. And I think that is also something very strong that I can build with the sound design, because the sound is such a huge element that builds that scene and the way you're going to feel it, because there is so much happening with the sound that you can imagine. It's something happening inside of her, and you just hear it. You just hear it for some while, and you feel it through also the eye of Demi, which has this kind of terror, vibes to it. And so, yes, that's really from the start, because when I write, I really write the way I'm going to film it. I write the sound, I write the framings, I write, and so I know from the start the elements I want to focus onto are the one that I want to leave out of frame.
And part of the way I understand, if I understand this correctly, that you're able to also execute this is there's principal photography, but then you've got like a skeleton crew that you could do lots of I think 10 days that you shot after you maybe sent the actors home. Is that what it was?
It was a month.
It was a month?
Yeah. Yes, I would. For me, I call everything principal photography, because all my head of departments are still there. Like there is me, there is my DP, and we have like a much smaller crew, but it's like not a B unit that is shooting on its own, like insert. Because for me, those shots, they are as important as the other ones, but their specificity that they take a lot of time to frame because it's macro shot, it's insert, and you don't need 100 people, with
All
you
the money and the
to do
cast
that.
and all the-
Exactly. Yeah. So I can do that because, again, as I edit, I know exactly which shots I want to put where, how I want to frame it. So I'm able to extract those from the shooting when they are the actors and to put them at the end of the shooting for when the actors are not there anymore, and we can have a much more reduced crew to do all that. So yeah, it was like, yes, it was almost a month, so we call it the lab. In the idea also, it's where we're going to experiment. So it's where we're going to shoot all the crazy stuff that don't need a huge crew, but need a lot of time to experiment. So it was the little motorbike that was a little toy, that we trained to go into this trail to go towards camera. It was this fly, in the glass of wine or on the neck. It was all the prosthetics, important shots, again, that were with no actors, all the back openings, all the injections, all the close-ups, on the syringe in the back, all the tunnel of light, also that we did for real with researching how we could do that, testing, having this camera going into those tubes. So, and so I love this idea that to me, it's when you don't have predefined rules that you find interesting way of doing things, I think I witnessed that what often limits creativity is when you say, oh, no, this is the way to do it, or, this is the way to do it. What I love with this film, we never had someone having his back open and give birth to someone from the back, so there was no proper way to do it. We had to invent our own way of doing it. And that what was great also with, the head of departments. We were creating our own rules for this film. We are creating the best way for us to do it. And I had allowed myself also, as being a co-producer, to give also my own rules for how to shoot it. To say, I don't want to do this during the main shoot because it's going to take a lot of times, but I do need a lot of time at the end of the shooting to have the time that I need to make it in a powerful way. And I think it was for me a huge step in creating my way of shooting stuff, the way I need, things around me to function, to give me the proper freedom to create those. And so, yeah, it was also a great moment because it was a little bit crazy, because we were really like doing all the crazy stuff in this little, sound stage with few members of the crew left.
Well, time is money in filmmaking, and it's like those hours are less expensive, and so you do have that freedom with that.
Exactly.
To transition off that, Demi Moore's performance is it's an incredible physical performance, and kind of the opposite of what we were just talking about. As the prosthetics get more extreme, my understanding is, that stuff can only be made for that day. It's not like something it's not like a suit she can go try on or work with. Some of this stuff, and so I'm curious in terms of, especially as we get more extreme, or you get more extreme with that performance, how did you and Demi collaborate to figure out that physical performance, right? Because she doesn't have the actual mechanics of it, the prosthetics, to do it. So I'm wondering how that worked.
Yeah, that was the biggest challenge, I think, because as you say, it's like huge steps of her characters, and basically she had to find that on the day, because those prosthetic suits, they are highly expensive, and once you've worn them once, you can't reuse them. Once you apply the makeup, every piece goes on the trash, so you can't test it. You can't rehearse with it. You can't like put it in rehearsal a week before to try the body language, to try everything. Basically, it's going to be on the day. Of course, you do a few tests, but it's very, very limited. So basically, it was, I think, the most challenging shooting days because it was like maybe 6 to 7 hours of makeup to get to the final stage of the character, and then we had just maybe sometime 2 or 3 hours left to find the performance. So it was highly stressful for everyone because we knew that our time was limited. So I think the hours she spent in the chair were in a way her rehearsal, were in a way how she started to find her character little by little. And I remember she was extremely a good soldier during those moments. She never complained. She never, she welcomed all the hours of makeup in such a great way. And I think that for her, it was a way, little by little, to step into this next stage of her character. So then during the shooting, we had to find the voice. We had to find the body language. We had to find how everything was going to work on camera because we had so little time to do real tests. So then it's when I think also some kind of magic happened when you have such a limited window, when so important things are going to be done. There is some kind of adrenaline that goes out of you and that make you find the right stuff. It's very stressful, but it also helps something of being there, and what was interesting as well is that for all the shots where we had full body, naked full body, we of course couldn't do that with Demi because it was like a super skinny, representation of the character, and I didn't want to use VFX, to make her thinner, so we chose for when we had a large shot where we were seeing the Gollum character, in full body.
You guys call him
naked.
Gollum too.
Exactly. Yeah.
I thought that was just us.
No. And so we used a body double, which was a performer, which was hyper skinny, where we applied the full body prosthetic, and we were trying, starting to create also some body language. So we had this, and then we had Demi, which had the makeup until the waist, and they were shooting the same day or not necessarily the same day, so they could watch each other, what they were doing. And so there was this kind of, we were shaping a character with different, person on different days, and there was this kind of alchemy that worked because I had also very specific idea of what I wanted the body language to transmit. So I knew that when it was the first moment when she discovers herself, there is this relationship to the full body that is so skinny that is made of only bones left, and when she's going to fall down, it's like her bones are cracking. And then when she's kind of taming this next stage of her character, there is this kind of superhuman force that goes out of her again, which in a non-realistic way is meant to express what she's feeling, the anger, the hatred for it. And then it gives her superpower to kind of take the other one, run in the apartment and want to kill her. And it's another thing that for me was super important to stick to because I knew I wasn't interested about having just the aging stuff. For me, the whole process of the character is not about the aging. It's about the metamorphosis, what the relationship to your own body becomes and the hatred that it generates. And this is what I wanted to express. That's why I wanted her to have this strength, this kind of anger and power that bursts out of her when she, wants to kill Sue. And I think all those things that were very precise when I wrote the script was also the thing that allowed us to make it happen in the way with all those prosthetic, with all those different systems, because it had a clear spinal cord, it has a clear pass. So, all the elements were having sense one with another.
We're not going to have time to talk about the final metamorphosis and in El Mostro and in the kind of liberation there, but I do want to put a plug out. We did talk to you and Demi and your department heads for a deep dive video that we did that's up on YouTube, and we really got into a lot of that last part. So even though we have to end it there, check that out because you can hear about the next and last part of the metamorphosis, because El Mostro and the Cubist Picasso, whatever that is and the blood is quite something. So, but thank you so much. This is great.
Thank you.